Ah, I was live, but I had not added myself to the stream. But that's par for the course today. Okay, so this is Stories Live. I'm Amy Armstrong, and tonight we have for you Carter Wilson will be leading us off. And I'm just going to go through the rest of our roster here so you know what to expect. We also have Sue Mitchell, Karen Albright Lin, C.S. Simpson, who is Christina Simpson, and Kendra Griffin and Steve Anderson. So it's a pretty packed show tonight. I'm going to try not to blab too much because I know we all, want to do things like sleep or, something boring like that. Maybe read a book. So let's see. I will go ahead and add Carter here. Hi, Carter.
Hello. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm overcoming some shock today. I was trying to look civilized for tonight, and I ended up having a eyelash curler snap off and break right by my eyeball, which I guess is maybe appropriate. Right, I know. I'm like, Carter totally curls his eyelashes.
I do.
So
every day.
So yes, the pain. It's the worst. So anyway, so let's see. You seem to have a thing for dead stuff too, right? You've got The Dead Husband, which just came out, and The Dead Girl in 2A.
Wow. Yep. Fits in the theme, right?
Yeah, definitely. So what have you got for us tonight?
Well, I mean, as you said, when you mentioned to me that the theme was dead things, I thought, Jesus Christ, I have so much to choose from. But I'm doing something different. I'm actually going to read the beginning of the novel that comes out next year, which I've never done before. So it's a little different. I've never read it before, so I might stumble and fumble through it, but it's called The New Neighbor, and it very much has to do with dead things.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I will let you take it away, and I'll see you in a few minutes.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So this doesn't need any setup because this is the beginning of the book. June 2nd, Baltimore, Maryland. I thought I couldn't handle another minute in the funeral home, but this church is worse. My wife doesn't belong here. 34 years old, and the count stops there. Her biological clock runs backward now, ticking decomposition. I try to push away the thought of her face being anything other than radiant and smooth, but I can't do it anymore. I can only picture it collapsing in on itself, a pumpkin rotting in the sun. Daddy, your tie. I look down. Maggie points at my neck, her fierce blue eyes gift-wrapped with streaks of red. Easy to tell when she's been crying. What? It's coming off. I reach up, touch my clip-on, find half of it coming out of the collar. I jam it back in, doubting it'll stay. I neither own nor know how to fasten a proper tie, so I had to go to a department store to find a clip-on for my wife's funeral. What an experience that was. Holly was 2 days dead, and I had to stagger into a Macy's and endure the glossy smiles and empty calorie banter of the staff, just so I could look acceptable at the service. Thanks, I tell my daughter. I realize she's missing her other half. Where's your brother? He wanted to stay outside. What? Can I go outside too? She asks. I don't want to be here. None of us wants to be here, love. Last place on earth we want to be. But right now, it's where we need to be, at least for a little while. I placed my palm on her 7-year-old head. Jesus wept. This is brutal. Stay here. I'm getting Bo. It doesn't take more than a dozen steps to get back outside, and I'm both thankful for the bout of fresh air and guilty I made my daughter stay inside the church. Bo and Maggie, twins, but couldn't be less alike. Sun and moon, water and sky. The day Holly and I found out we were having fraternal twins, we'd agreed the girl would have an Irish name from my ancestry, and the boy would have a Swedish name from hers. As the years rolled on, we couldn't ignore the huge body of water between them, as if they were truly raised in different lands. Outside, Bo stares at a tree in the courtyard of the church. A handful of people stroll across the cobblestone, making their way to the service. A coworker from the bar I work at spies me, shoots me a pitied look, and pivots my way. I lower my head. Attention isn't something I crave even on my happiest of days. Today, it's poison. As I reach Bo, I touch his back. His navy blue blazer is the other thing I had to buy at Macy's, and I guessed a size too big. With his mop of jet black hair, pale skin, bony frame, and loose wardrobe, he looks like a miniature scarecrow. Shows about as much emotion, too. What you doing? I ask. He keeps looking at the tree. It's an oak, he says. I look at it, not really caring what kind of tree it is. But we have to go inside, buddy. He doesn't move. It's probably older than she was, he says. I take a breath, bite it in half, spit it out. Bo, listen to me. We got to go inside. I know you don't want to, but we gotta. Now he turns, fixes his gaze on me. He has her eyes, deep and dark, 1,000 lifetimes behind them. Why? Because you need to say goodbye, I tell him. I did already when the ambulance took her. You know that's different. It's all that counts. I said goodbye. I don't want to see her. You actually won't see her, I say, knowing exactly how he feels. So then I'll stay here. I feel the muscles tighten in my neck, spread down my arms. I kneel and look into those bottomless eyes. Bo, you have to. Right now. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. He blinks once, twice. Tell me why. I rub his arm, think on it for a second. Logic is a fleeting ghost these days. Then I say, because you're her child, and there are folks in there who want to see her again, but they can't. But they can see you. They can see her in you. Those folks are grieving too, and you being there might help relieve a little of that pain for them. Does that make sense? He thinks on it. Not really. No, I suspect it doesn't. Well, how about this? I need you. You and Maggie. I have to go in there. And I don't know if I can do it without you. You too, my columns. Need you to keep me from crumbling. Just do it for me, Bo. Can you do that? He lets us settle with him a minute, and with no verbal confirmation, he takes my hand and lets me lead him back inside. Every inch feels like a battle, hand-to-hand combat. The next hour comes and goes in intermittent bursts of clarity, like driving through rolling fog. There's the service, not quite what I want or expect, but how am I to know what to want or expect? I say a few words to the congregation, mumbling them mostly, then do a reading from King James. I choke up, look away from the Bible, and spot Da there in the front pew. My father flew in from Dublin just yesterday. His gaze so hard, willing the strength for both of us, and he gives me this little nod, the slightest thing. But it helps. Da and I know about death. I sit down, a few more readings. I don't recall who or what. The priest says words I've heard before at services of others who are much older than Holly. Hearing these words, my brain comes up with the word widow. No, that's not right. Not widow. Widower. That's it. A sudden irrational flash in my mind. I'm at a cocktail party. A fancy bloke in a slick suit shakes my hand and asks what I do. I'm a widower, I say. My name is Aidan Marlowe, and I'm a goddamn 35-year-old widower. The vision shakes me, the distraction welcome. More words, more fog, some organ music. We go outside. I touch my collar, checking. I'm still wearing the tie. Holly wears a casket. Does this make me look fat? The thought almost makes me laugh. Ends up making me cry. We carry her, me, Da, Holly's two brothers, her mother and father. Holly's family all lives in Maryland. I see it ahead. The whole. More blurring. At one point, dizziness sweeps me and I think, I can't bear this weight anymore. And yet I do because I have to. The casket sits beside the open hole. There are more words, priest words, flavorless as communion wafers. Bo and Maggie flank me, my arms around them. Maggie sniffles, having run clean out of tears. Bo is as silent and steady as that oak tree, and I don't know how. It worries me a little, maybe more than a little. I daze away for a moment, and then I'm aware of a slight murmur from the crowd around me. The priest has a brief conversation with the groundskeeper who's just ghosted onto the scene, his dirty jeans and long-sleeved green t-shirt in stark contrast to the black dawn by the lot of us. Comforting to see a working man here, I think. A bloke would wear a clip-on tie, I'd wager. Their conversation ends, the groundskeeper whisks away, and the priest says, "I'm sorry." He follows this up with something about the ground not being quite ready, and I don't even know what that means. The ground isn't ready to swallow up my wife? I might have said this out loud. I don't know. The priest apologizes a second time and tells us it'll be another 15 minutes or so, that the crew hasn't prepped the site to completion, and suggests we go back inside. I'll stay, I say. I'll stay here. Others agree, say they want to stay as well, but I tell them no. Even my kids, my family, Holly's family, I tell them to go inside because I want to be alone with her one last time. That maybe the ground wasn't supposed to be ready, just so I could have this final moment. The priest tells me I won't be totally alone, that the grounds crew will be here. Okay, I say, that's okay. The crowd trails back to the church like a long black cat skulking through high grass. Holly's mother holds the hands of my children. They are gone, and for a moment before the grounds crew comes back to do what they need to do, Holly and I are alone. So alone. All my life I've felt energy, the radiating pulses of others, good, bad, hot, cold. I could tell a friend their mood before they realized it themselves. And Holly, her energy was special. I felt it the first time I saw her when she strutted into my family's pub in Dublin 12 years ago. She sizzled an exposed live wire. I thought I might die when I finally touched her, but instead came alive for the first time. Now there's nothing, not a single crackle or sparkle. Whatever wellspring of energy is left of my wife has transmitted to some void I'm not allowed to visit, at least not yet. I've said plenty of things to her, dead and alive, and have an eternity more to say. But what comes to mind is this. Should have bought a better fucking tie. I reach, yank my tie off, jam it into the front pocket of my blazer. Should have spent more money and learned how to tie it. I'm sorry. It's just that with the funeral, the costs, everything's so expensive. Your parents are helping out. Bless them. I was in that store looking for ties and my brain was swirling. And I just wanted to be out of there. And then I heard your voice scolding me in that playful way you always did. You told me, Marlo, don't spend good money on a tie. You'll only wear this once. You said that. I swear you said that. And I ended up spending $8 on this stupid clip-on. And this breaks me. Breaks me in a way I haven't been broken since she died. The simple failure of dressing proper for Holly's funeral, despite the fact she'd see it as an unnecessary expense. I owed that much to her. An extra $20 on a decent tie. I couldn't even do that. I'm sorry, I tell her. I reach over, rest my fingertips on the casket. Honey glaze, cool and smooth. I can't do this. I cannot do this alone. The bitterest part is she never knew all of me. I never told her everything about my past. And now, even with her gone, even with only her husk to confess to, I'm still tempted to hold my silence. My unending, poisonous silence. Tell her, Marlo. Tell her now, before the ground takes her. I suck in a deep breath, thinking I will finally tell her. This thing in me, wanting to come out all these years. When I was younger, I start to say, back in Ireland, my mobile vibrates, 2 short buzzes, a text message. The only reason I even reach for it is the timing. As if Holly can talk to me, but only through text. As I swipe my screen open, I'm 99% convinced there'll be a message from her telling me the one thing we always said to each other, no matter the time of day, no matter how rushed we were, no matter our moods, no matter how much we even meant it in that moment. The same thing she said to me 2 hours before she died, on her way out the door that morning. This thing we said because it was our one truth, without which everything else would have been a lie. I love you. I check my notifications. There is a new text. but it's from an old childhood friend in Ireland. Thinking of you. I don't reply, maybe later. My gaze sweeps all the older texts, so many unread. Later. Then, for no other reason than how my synapses decided to fire in this moment, I look at one of the other unread messages. One I receive twice a week, every Wednesday night and Saturday night. The Powerball numbers. With a Pavlovian lack of thought, I click on the message, hardly aware my other hand still rests on my wife's casket. These are throwaway texts, discarded in seconds. A few times a year, I might have had 2 numbers match. In all my years of playing, I've had 3 numbers match only 4 times, despite playing twice a week. I spent countless of dollars playing the same numbers on Powerball for years on end, yet buy a shit tie for Holly's final day of rest. Goddamn me. The text is familiar, with one exception. Powerball, May 30th, 2018, winning numbers 1, 5, 8, 10, 14, Powerball 22. One winner, annuitized $60.4 million cash. The numbers, I realize. These fucking numbers. They're mine. I'm going to stop there. I know it's a little short, but I'm going to stop there.
Awesome. Well, gosh, that sounds like well, I don't know. I mean, kind of starting off as a crappy day, so maybe that's not, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I'm intrigued, and we still don't know what his secret is,
Yeah, it's basically a story about a man who can't handle the significance of death and money at the same time, and so he slowly goes mad. So, cheery, uplifting tale.
Yeah, happy things. We like that. All right.
Well, thanks for having me on, Amy. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for reading, and I'll catch you later, probably on Facebook.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. So next up, we have Sue Mitchell. Let's see. Oh, there she is. Okay. Just didn't want to catch you, off camera. Hello, Sue.
Hi, how are you doing? You never know what people are doing on and off camera, right?
Well, my imagination's always going, and I just assume if the camera's off, there's something really exciting going on.
As can be the case, right? It's often
yeah. So at least we haven't had anybody show up on the show naked, which is probably for the best. You
don't want the censors to get involved, right?
No, exactly.
We're big on free speech. That's right, folks.
Yeah, no nudity, no nipples, no phallic like things. Don't want any of that. No. All right. So, what do you have for us tonight, Sue?
I'm actually in following Carter's lead. Interestingly, I'm going to read a little bit from a brand new manuscript I've been working on over the pandemic. First reading, relatively new draft. So hopefully I won't botch anything in that piece. But it's something new I've been working on that kind of came to me over the pandemic. And I'm kind of excited about it. It's been fun to work on. It has a lot to do with my weird obsession with thrift stores and thrifting.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And spirits and things sort of like attached to physical objects and the idea of physical media. And it's called Sucker for Liner Notes. So it's got a little bit of
nice
rock and roll, little supernatural. And I'm thinking
all right.
The first chapter.
All right. Well, I will let you go forth and read it, and I'm excited. All right.
Awesome.
So I'll see you in a bit.
Okay. All right. I'm going to start. This is Sucker for Liner Notes. We're going to start with chapter 1, which is called Friend of the Devil. And we've got a little quote here from our pals, the Grateful Dead. Set out running, but I take my time. A friend of the devil is a friend of mine. If I get home before daylight, I just might get some sleep tonight. It was hot. Desert hot. Dry wind, red sky, earth thirsty for a monsoon hot. Devil licking cracked, parched lips with a split silver tongue hot. Casey was lying spread eagle on the bed with the curtains shut. The sun was still high and wide at 7 p.m., and the dusky room gave the illusion of it getting cooler. It was definitely the time of year to be nocturnal if you had the luxury. She didn't. She worked days at the University Media Center, and Fridays were the only days she left before 6 p.m. And she beat Jack home, again. The dogs needed to be fed, but the lack of Jack in the house and the heat beating the roof mercilessly and the cool tile floor kept the canine team, Sadie and Cinnamon Girl, sprawled out silently like animal skin rugs. The bedroom was the coolest room in the battered old rental house, but not the darkest. Layers of paint and memories, chipped surfaces, and stories filled the place. Both Casey and Jack loved spaces and places and things that teemed with history. Jaybird, Casey's bestie from way back before she could remember a time without him, said, "You're a spice rack and rubber chicken away from hoarders." Jack took it as a compliment. The air was crackling with electric anticipation. Casey and the dogs were too tired to concede that a thunderstorm might be coming. All the girls in the household shuddered at thunder and winced with lightning. Their bones would rattle with the vibration like victims of psychic shock treatments. Storms were challenging and a really tough part of this season in more ways than one. Just then a drizzle bounced off the window air conditioner, daring the skies to open like blood-filled wounds. Jack appeared in the bedroom doorway, happy to be home, with stereo equipment under one arm and an economy-sized plastic bottle of rum in the other hand. "I found a component CD player at work, and Sailor Jerry was on sale." It didn't take much to make that man happy. He managed the book department at a local thrift store and was like a modern-day Indiana Jones, excavating pop culture. He put the bottle on a green nightstand with a brass leaf handle and placed the CD player gingerly on the bed. He turned to the Spanish colonial revival dresser to start monkeying with the Frankenstein monster of a stereo that graced the scuffed wood surface. "You don't find components like this often," Jack mused, as he pulled cables to hook up the latest limb to the musical monstrosity. Giant wood-clad speakers from the 70s flanked the dresser, unprepared for the sonic nutrients that would pulse from the veins nimbly attached to their most sensitive parts and pound their speakers with rhythms unknown. And then it happened. Blistering noise seethed and shocked through the speakers. They pulsed and throbbed with heavy bass guitar, drums so deep and cavernous they felt like they could only happen in darkness. The windows rattled. Guitar licks dripped like thick blood when you bite your cheek, and flesh oozes out. A voice like no other language Casey could recognize echoed in her skull. And with that, both dogs started barking maniacally. "Turn that the hell down," Casey whined, holding her ears. Jack laughed. "Isn't this your favorite song?" No, it isn't, and it's freaking the dogs out, and probably sent the cat into hiding for a week." Jack turned it down like a scolded child, but even lower music was menacing, and the weather outside seemed connected to its pulse, with wind howling in tune, rain in time with the melody, and a crack of thunder to complement the drum beats. Both dogs continued to growl at the speakers. Seriously, turn it off, it's creeping me out. Jack reluctantly stopped the song and ejected the CD. What's the story with this music, and where did it come from? Casey inquired with a head tilt. It came in the player. There's no case, no cover, no art. Jack replied, sheesh. Casey said, get rid of it. Jack picked out a Grateful Dead bootleg and put it in the CD player and slipped the mystery disc inside of the illustrated fold-out booklet from the Rarity. He felt compelled to keep it. He didn't second guess or overthink it. He nestled it in the pages of the embellished Dead memento, where even a creepy home-burned CD felt safe. Like the Egyptian prayer of the dead would offer protection. Didn't people rely on thinly veiled pages to keep them safe throughout troubled times? Didn't those antiquated, crispy edges of first edition religious texts hold a mystical power that defied reason? Weren't they the manifestation of belief systems that compelled generations, provoked wars, called soldiers to arms, and held in celebration when unearthed in unblemished condition? This is why the CD player was such a find. Physical media was an important piece of history. The extras, pictures, packaging, all were part of the experience. And both Casey and Jack were suckers for liner notes. Those little stories and quips that gave each song and session a little more flavor and texture. It was in those secret places that a snack of a song could be elevated to a meal or even a feast. Not many people put out vinyl anymore, and CDs were hanging on by a thread. Digital and online media just felt too easy. It could be lost, deleted, brushed off like a betrayal. Real books, records, and vintage decor filled their home. Born in the 70s and raised in the 80s, they were more cripsters than hipsters now. They had bonded over their shared appreciation of culture, carefully crafted collections, and the thrill of the thrifting hunt, tracking down treasures like prey. Casey believed that certain items had an energy that drew people to them, and traces of their former owners stayed within the objects long after their owners had moved on or just simply let them go. Jack wasn't convinced of the physical energy theory and found Casey's mystical musings to be a little woo-woo. I'm open to the stuff, but haven't felt it personally or even seen a single ghost. I want to, though, he'd tell Casey when she brought it up. She belonged to a Facebook group called Weird Secondhand Finds That Need to Be Shared and consumed the stories like novels. When she couldn't sleep, she lied in bed thinking about the finds and how many of them were really beyond coincidence. In her world, ghosts were more of a feeling, a sensation. She firmly believed that extrasensory perception wasn't necessarily a sixth sense, but having some senses that were more finely tuned, for better or worse, to certain frequencies in the universe. Last Halloween, when Jack made a last-minute candy run and Casey was heating cider on the stove, the living room stereo, yes, they had two, turned up during a song called It's Over by Amy Mann. The lyric was, "But you sit there in the darkness, and you make plans but they're hopeless, and you blame God when you're lonely, and you'll call it fate when you show up too late and it's over." And then the music lowered. She watched the numbers on the stereo volume rise and fall. When she turned her eyes back to the kitchen, both dogs, who'd been lying peacefully on the kitchen floor, were sitting up, ears and eyes at full attention, looking out the back door alley, fixated. And all of the kitchen cabinets were open. There was a cool breeze in the whole kitchen, like a small tornado, but it wasn't coming from the opened back door through the screen that rattled slightly when anything moved. And there was the distinct smell of Cavendish pipe tobacco. That was the day she knew for sure the house had some kind of spirits tethered to it, and that presence liked Amy Mann, which was a good thing. Casey wasn't scared of these moments, just hyper aware. And that tingly electric feeling was hanging thick in the kitchen that Halloween. The same distinct atmosphere she felt the night when Jack came home. "Do you smell something?" she asked. "Like what?" he replied. "Smoke tobacco, like sweet pipe tobacco." "Nope. It couldn't be the heater. It was sweltering and summertime. The heat had not been on for months." Casey swore she heard something rattling in the heating duct system, like when you turn on the system at the start of the season and it clanks like the Tin Man coming back to life after a rainstorm and spits out that awful aroma of death and winter's past mixed with pet hair. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw the faint sheen of smoke swirling about and above the ceiling. Something was definitely up. I'm going to take a sip of water. Most Friday nights, Casey and Jack got takeout and watched a horror movie. Chinatown was one of their regular stops. It was Casey's favorite for Mushu shrimp, and Jack liked it because they ordered in person and perused Earth Pig records while they waited for their order. Win-win. "Let's go get dinner before everything closes." "You just want to record shop," Casey said with lifted eyebrows. She grabbed her bag and they headed for the door. They left out the back door and opened the gate that led to a long driveway and hopped in the Jeep. Just as they were pulling out of the driveway, Jack noticed Alan sitting on the curb in front of his house with his head in his hands. He stopped the car. He motioned to Casey and they both got out. Alan was a thin, quiet man with a full head of pure white hair. He lived next door with his elderly mother, Eleanor, who was 93. Alan was a big reader and fan of the library. They all traded books, and the couple kept an eye on him. Alan was, without a doubt, one of the loneliest people Casey ever met. He was one of those people who seemed like they were late for nothing and always missing someone. Casey stopped to chat with Alan when he maintained the manuka trees in the front yard. His mother, Eleanor, had fallen in love with the flowering tea trees during a trip to New Zealand, and her late husband planted a pair for them in their front yard the spring after their trip, one for each of them. Taking care of his mother, Eleanor, had taken a toll. Eleanor was determined to live out her days in that house. Alan moved in when she needed round-the-clock care and never looked back, even though there was an independent living facility next to the Catholic church that she attended her whole life, and it was literally a street away. "Are you okay, Alan?" Jack asked, quietly, concerned that Eleanor had passed. "Mercedes just died," Ellen replied. Mercedes was Eleanor's ancient poodle and best friend. "I just don't know how to tell her or what to do. That dog's been her constant companion, and I know she'll be devastated." "I'm so sorry," Casey whispered as she leaned in and put her hand on Alan's shoulder. "I know how much Mercedes meant to your mom. Is there anything we can do?" "No, I don't know how to tell her. Mercedes was fine, and about a half hour ago she started barking and pacing frantically and digging at the cellar door, and I couldn't calm her down. I went to check on Mom, and she was having a nightmare and wouldn't wake up. When she finally settled, Mercedes stopped barking. But when I went back in the kitchen, I found her lying on the cellar door. I thought she was sleeping at first." Alan's eyes were wide and wet, like he knew there was more sadness to come, and the night wasn't cried out yet. "We're so sorry," Jack shared. "You know we're dog people too, and if there's anything we can do." Alan thanked them and held up a hand in a wilted wave as they drove off. "What the actual fuck?" Jack croaked at Casey. "That's terrible. I can't imagine. They've had such a hard time, and I know she loved that little Rottweiler to the moon and back. Life is just so sad sometimes," Casey rattled. The synapses in her brain were firing on all cylinders. Maybe Eleanor and Mercedes were so connected and linked that when the little dog exhaled her last earthbound breath, they were interconnected. There were so many webs the universe weaved through people and animals and places. Casey was a researcher and mystery lover at heart, and she'd been keeping a notebook of neighborhood observances. She walked Sadie and Cinnamon daily around the retirement home in the neighborhood and the church with its well-manicured lawns and landscape and statues of the Blessed Mother in the garden. She grew to know the church and elder home employees, the residents, and the families. She noticed death had seasons, specific times of year when the residents expired. It often coincided with the changing of the seasons and in groups, almost as if when one opened that door, they held it open for the others, so they didn't have to pass alone. Clearly, Casey knew she was compelled to connect dots and see the interconnectedness of things. She didn't impose on her observances. She simply organized them and found patterns and messages left behind. She didn't want to get lost. Someone had to pay attention. She was careful not to take the luxury of misidentifying or attributing song lyrics. She'd heard enough of the blues to know one thing for sure. The devil is always in the details. It's where he collects the bricks for his home and to imprison poor souls. The implications are out there for anyone with a willing ear. Casey just happened to be tuned in and cataloged the mystical melody like a ghost album that record collectors would kill for. All right, I'm going to stop there. And I didn't time myself, so I don't know if I'm long or short.
You're good. It's fine. Yeah, well, so I don't know. There's definitely a lot to be learned from that, especially like I have a feeling if, your thrift store CD player find has a CD that's like home burned in there, maybe it's a good sign to throw it out. Could be the Doom CD.
You never know what it can awaken. There's all kinds of
exactly
chanting in metal and music can operate on a big frequency, bring things to the surface.
Oh God. Yeah, very concerned. Okay, well, thank you, Susan. And yeah, I'll probably be chatting with you in a few minutes here.
All Fantastic.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. I said thank you. I'll be here listening to the rest of the folks.
Okay, cool. All right. So next up, we have Karen. Just wanted to make sure didn't get things mixed up. So, hey, Karen.
Hi, Amy.
So, what do you have for us?
Well, I have an essay that I wrote that helped inspire my novel that's going to be out in paperback in Mushy Mac and Cheese, by the way. It's going to be out in paperback soon, and it's an essay about death.
Oh, okay.
For the subject, and it's called After Grandpa Died.
Okay.
Here we go. What about your grandfather? My husband, Wen, just couldn't let it go. Grandpa had been dead half a year, and his ashes still resided in a simple gray box in our coat closet. I blinked and sat down next to Wen on the bed. I'll take care of it. How many times have you said that? He's like a stinky shoe in that closet. He flattened down the coarse waves of his crow-black hair. You know he's going to haunt us. My grandfather couldn't make it to our wedding, yet here he was, in death, very much present in our house. And Ma Yang, Wen's mother, had spotted the box only the day before. She and Wen had had a rather animated discussion about it in Mandarin. What did you tell your mother was in the box? Condoms. Wen had a lot of nerve staying deadpan. Condoms in our closet. I didn't even give it the dignity of a question mark. Enough to fill a whole box. Grandpa had made quite a transformation. I told her it was packed very full. You don't think too fast on your feet, do you? Lying to my mother isn't something I've perfected. You want me to tell her the truth? Couldn't you explain this in a way that won't upset her? Your grandfather is planted in the closet. I suppose you blame him? I don't think he had much to do with it, given his state. Wen pulled off his socks and rubbed antifungal cream onto his feet. The treatment was a useless move, as always. I didn't ask you to make up a silly lie, and I didn't ask to have custody of Grandpa either. And why would we keep rubbers in the coat closet? I grabbed a towel and huffed off to take a shower. Once done, instead of slipping my blue silk robe and tucking myself next to Wen in the bed, I brushed my teeth twice and flossed twice, all the while brainstorming places to relocate Grandpa and his ashes. If I could solve one problem tonight, I could slide into bed with one less worry. What to do with Grandpa Randall? His first choice, for sure, would be having himself scattered over Yankee Stadium and then watered in with Budweiser. But that would never be approved. From the moment UPS had delivered him, Wen had had the heebie-jeebies over Grandpa Randall being in our closet. Wen had groaned. He's gonna stay there? What if he's still hovering over his dusty remains, angry? How could I argue with that? But Wen never forced the issue until Ma saw the box. It would have been worse than awkward if my poor husband had decided to explain the truth of what was in the box to Ma. I began to see the benefit of the condom story. If nothing else, it offered a reprieve. Though both my Grandpa Randall and Wen's father had died of leukemia, death played favorites with destiny. The difference between their deaths: the Yang patriarch died surrounded by family. My grandfather lived alone and cut his tether 3 days early, leaving him good and ripe for the maid's weekly visit. He was promptly cremated, scooped into a low-rent box, and handed over to my father. There was no pretense of ceremony. And when Dad decided to change his life, he moved away after donating most of his stuff to the Salvation Army, including Grandpa. The thrift store traced me down and called me. Did I want the ashes my father had left with them? Okay. A year before, I had had my hand on Father Yang's bed when he died at home, in his bed, with his mouth wide open. On the other side from me, tears flowed from Wen's sisters and Ma. They stroked his papery limbs and fine, still living hair. He's hungry. He died hungry, Ma Yang proclaimed and ran to the kitchen. She returned minutes later with daikon swimming in chicken broth. Relatives. Maybe they'd grown tired of eating. I suppose mac and cheese wasn't nearly as enticing as Chinese soup. The phone had rung as Father Lin's spirit presumably sipped on broth. His sister from Taiwan, she called because she had felt his death. That mystical quality of passing was missing from my family. My grandpa still hung out in the closet because I simply hadn't thought about where to sprinkle him. I preferred to believe I was contemplating a good piece of real estate for him rather than admitting he was an afterthought, hidden where he rarely reminded me of my obligation. After his father's death, Wen drove a hard bargain for a tiny piece of California ground, a place on a hill, under a newly planted tree. Location, location, location. I had joined the family in packing Father Yang's body tightly into his casket and stacks of dead money, bought penny on the dollar in Chinatown. The body could not be allowed to shake on the way to the grave. That would shake away his descendants' good luck. I touched Father Yang more in death than I had in life. Numbness filled the spaces between layers of my admiration and horror about the procedure. The cemetery ritual included incense, live flowers, the cleaning of the headstone, and vows. That night, back home, we all burned dead money in the fireplace, along with other items required in heaven, even clothes, including a polyester suit that must have sent the neighbors looking for shelter from toxic fumes. Several days later, Father Yang began visiting the family in dreams, asking for more money. He was having a great time, obviously gambling the shirt off his back. As a result, my mother-in-law, had burned more clothes and more dead money without cursing her husband's addiction. Ma Yang had burned close-mouthed, devoted. She added Father's name to the dozens of Yang ancestors whose names were scrawled on the family rice paper family tree. She always offered his altar the best in season fruit. The rest of the family ate bruised remainders. Father Yang's passing didn't so much change my view of death as it altered my view of those still living. Finally, after half an hour, I knew where to put Grandpa's ashes. I dressed again, slipping into my shoes. In the quiet evening, I carried Grandpa Randall down to the rough, to the 9th hole of our neighborhood golf course, and dumped the seriously chunky remains. He had always loved to golf and was known for creative scorekeeping, taking free shots out of the rough. He'd like it there, I decided, because he could golf at all hours, cheat, and nobody would know. I promised the dusty pile that I'd visit his little mound where the grass would no doubt grow particularly verdant. I teased aloud, "Someday I'll put Grandma next to you." She was his longtime, bitterly divorced wife. After witnessing a Chinese death and all the ceremony around the burial, I could now entertain the possibility of Grandpa actually hearing me and the earth shaking over such a threat. I studied the ground for a few moments, but it never shook. Maybe Grandpa couldn't hear me over his own snores. The end.
All right. Thank you, Karen. That was great. So, yeah, and I love the idea of, a ghost out there cheating at golf. That sounds, sounds like good style.
He would probably do it.
Probably. Okay. Well, thank you. I'll, be chatting with you in a little bit here. And next we have Christina. So got CS Simpson, aka Christina. Oh,
That's
looks
me.
like you're. Oh, yes, you were unmuted now. Okay, awesome. Yeah, and so let's see. I guess something that you, Karen, and Kendra have in common is you all have stories in the anthology Fresh Starts too. Yep. So
Yep.
are you be reading from that, or are you
I
reading from
will.
something else? Okay, awesome.
Yeah. It's
All
a
right.
long story, so I'll get as far as I can. I think there's a decent stopping spot somewhere in the middle. So if I end up going
Okay.
too long, just cut me off.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, I will leave you to it then.
All right. Well, like she said, this is from the Fresh Starts anthology, and my short story is called Memories. It's about death. I bet you could probably guess that. Okay, here we go. It's early morning in the high New Mexican desert. The cool, crisp air burns my lungs as I run southward along the wide, paved road, listening only to the pounding of my feet on the pavement and my rapid breathing. I don't enjoy running most of the time. I prefer to walk briskly instead, but today, running is just what I need to get a grip on myself. The sun hasn't yet crested over the Sandia Mountains, making for an ideal winter morning workout. I still have 20 minutes before I should be back home to get ready for the coming day. Plenty of time. These daybreak getaways feel like the only time I get to myself anymore, apart from quiet car rides brought to me by the technological miracle of smartphones. The commuter traffic on Tramway Boulevard is picking up, and several other runners and cyclists have joined me on the path. The northeast corner of Albuquerque was mostly underdeveloped when I was a kid, and now it's full of homes and businesses. The city's changed a lot in the last 40 years. I guess everything does. I'm a desert rat. I was raised that way by my dad, who can never get enough of this desolate-looking place. I know people who've moved here for work and have nothing but contempt for the frequent dust storms that sandblast their houses and windshields. I have a colleague from Treeline, Pennsylvania, who calls this place the face of the moon. It may not be a bad physical comparison to the naked eye, yet I wholly disagree. The moon is a gray, lifeless, stagnant rock, whereas the New Mexican desert is full of various flowering cacti, pinyon pines, roadrunners, lizards, rabbits, bobcats, coyotes, and the ever-moving salmon-tinged land I call home. Reaching Academy Road, I turn around and run back toward home. According to my Fitbit, it's 7:36 a.m. The light of dawn reaches through the high canyons made by the sheer rock walls of the Sandias, bathing portions of the shaded western slope in striped shafts of brilliant sunlight. The steel cables of the hanging Sandia Peak tramway glint in the early morning sunlight, looking like thick strands of spider silk. Snow still nestled deep in the cracks and crevices of the mountain remind me of the growing spider veins on my legs. Middle age has been kind to me thus far, but I know it won't always be so. Some disease or sickness will find me someday too. My precious father, the man who helped me fall in love with the desert, died 5 days ago from early onset Parkinson's. His decline was slow at first. The simple tremors were more bothersome than troublesome. The doctors gave him drugs and dietary suggestions, and he followed the directions to the letter. And then, his medication just stopped working. The experts don't know why. The muscle tremors grew until his body shook violently, making the strong man I'd known my entire life weep bitterly in his last few months. It changed him before it took him. He's only been gone for a few days, but I already know I'll miss him like crazy for the rest of my life. My mother's been strong so far. She panicked for a while, back when he was first diagnosed, so by the time he could no longer swallow and was hallucinating, she'd already resigned herself to being a widow. I've not yet made that kind of emotional journey. I'm still working on it. Who am I, if not my daddy's little girl? Yes, I'm an adult, a wife, a mother, and a bank officer, but I was daddy's girl first. This defined me all through elementary school, got me teased in middle school, and won me the jealous stink eye throughout high school. My peers just couldn't understand my close connection to my father. I'm not sure I do either. It's as if he and I were twins, born a generation apart. Strange, I know, yet that's how I've always felt. Now that he's gone, I feel the need to dive deeper into myself to see who I really am without his constant love and support to hold me up. My experience with being an only child wasn't the suffocating presence I'd heard other kids talk about in school. Maybe I needed that extra parental attention. I don't know. Maybe the twin feeling with my dad was so powerful that no amount of parental attention or control could faze me. Reaching my neighborhood entrance, I turn and slow to a fast walk, wheezing like an asthmatic. I'm getting old for sure. I need to cool down this last half mile to my house so I won't wake my boys with my loud panting. Besides, it's all uphill from here into the foothills of my neighborhood, and I'm already tired. My father's funeral is set for 5:30 this evening, after school and many work hours, so most people can make it. I've agreed to stand up and share something, though I'm still not sure what that will be. How do you sum up a person's entire life with a few words? Hopes, dreams, accomplishments? They all seem so small and useless in the light of death. Maybe I can talk about how close we were and how I'll miss him, but those are normal morning words, right? My dad was better than normal. He was amazing. How can I possibly convey the depth of this new massive black hole in my soul to my friends and family? As I reach my street, I see Mrs. Kirkpatrick wave as she exits her courtyard. Her 10-month-old cockapoo puppy coughs and strains at the end of a bright pink leash. Sorry to hear about your father, Cheryl, she calls out. Thank you. Me too. How else should I answer? Do you have time to chat? The puppy yanks so hard in my direction, it sounds like it's choking. Mrs. Kirkpatrick does not seem to notice as she walks slowly toward me. No, sorry. I need to get the boys up and ready to go and over to my mom's. Another time? Okay. Her face visibly droops, a sadness taking over her aged features. See you later, then. She heads the other way with the manic puppy. I continue walking around the curve of the street and wonder what she wants to talk to me about. We don't know each other very well, but she does go to church with my parents. Maybe she wants to ask me something about the funeral or what kind of food my mom likes. Except mom's already buried in sorry your husband died casseroles. There are no sidewalks in my neighborhood, and I suddenly snag my leg on an overlong spike from a Christmas cactus that's stretching into the narrow road. Damn, I mutter as I reach for the 2-inch spine sticking out of my purple jogging pants. I hiss at the pain as it detaches from my flesh and fling it back at the offending plant. That's what I get for not paying attention. Apparently my thoughts are too absorbing this morning. Stupid, 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 I whispered to myself. Back in the house, I head straight to the master bathroom. I can get my sons out of bed after a hot shower. I strip the sweaty clothes off my still cold body and slip into the steamy water. The penetrating warmth loosens my shoulders. I didn't realize I'd been so tense until now. But of course I'm tense. My dad is dead. I don't want him to be dead yet. My sons haven't reached high school, and I know my father would have been a great help to both of them with their coming adolescent angst. He was a family therapist, and a damn good one. I never felt as if he were analyzing me or using his gift of reverse psychology to manipulate me. If he did practice those skills, I was wholly unaware. Like I said, he was a damn good therapist. Was. My tears fall fast, surprising me, and add the taste of salt to the shower water streaming down my face. I feel my facial features twist as I sink to the tile floor in a wet, naked heap of soapy pitifulness. My father is a was. I won't ever be able to text him a funny meme, a close-up picture of a cactus flower, or just call him to hear his deep, smooth baritone. His voice has been a balm to my soul my entire life. Never again. I force myself to stand, finish my shower, and get dressed. I need to get the boys ready to go to Grandma's house. I told her we'd be there by 10 o'clock, and we still haven't packed our clothes for the funeral. Damn funeral. My youngest son, 12-year-old Joshua, is already awake when I peek into his room. He blinks at me from under the covers. Hey, kid, why don't you think about what you're going to wear tonight while you're getting dressed? You can lay it out on your bed before breakfast, and I'll see if it's appropriate. Sure, Mom. Dad said goodbye early and woke me up. Josh rubs at his eyes, an unconscious pout forming around his mouth. Yeah, love is rough, I reply without any sympathy. I grin at him, and Josh smiles back. I'm going to get your brother up, too. I leave his door jamb, head across the hall to my nearly 14-year-old's room, and knock before pushing open the door to his dark man cave. Blake? Blake, honey, it's time to get up. A moan emanates from the far corner. Come on, son, you can do it. We told Grandma we'd be at her house in less than 2 hours. Blake moans again, but sits up in bed anyway, his shadow of a body barely registering on my retinas. Can I turn on the light? Sure, he mumbles. I flip the switch and catch his squinting eyes. I need you to pick out what you're going to wear tonight while you're getting dressed. Lay it out on your bed before breakfast, and I'll see if it's a good choice. Blake nods as he rubs his eyes too. Thank you. My dad was always polite to me, and I've kept the tradition with my kids. I'm stern when I need to be, but for the most part, these boys respond to good old positive reinforcement, which includes politeness. Clothes for tonight. I haven't picked out my outfit yet either. I wander back into my closet and stare. My clothes are organized according to color, and the black section is surprisingly large for someone living in the desert. What can I say? Black goes with everything. As I thumb through the dark clothes looking for inspiration, my mind turns to a hot day at Cliff's amusement park when I was in 3rd grade. My mom was sick with a sinus infection, and Dad had wanted to get out of the house with me. Daddy dates were treasured days, and when he asked what I wanted to do, Cliff's came to mind immediately. The day had warmed up into the high 90s, taking my dad by surprise. We were both hot, tired, and cranky after only an hour or two, and I was starting to lose it in line for the Galaxy roller coaster. I remember the look on his face as my tired, heat-addled mind reverted to stomping at toddler antics. He was disappointed, yes, though the look was full of more pity than anger somehow. I wonder what he was thinking. I'll never get the chance to ask. The sound of young men arguing in the kitchen behind me brings back my mind back to the present with a jerk. How long have I been standing here? I head to the kitchen to break up the argument, but by the time I round the corner, it's over. Boy tempers can flare and cool so quickly. I grab a granola bar from the pantry and fiddle with the packaging while I stare at my children. They're growing too fast. Where will I be when they're 40 years old? Can we eat leftover pizza for breakfast? Blake asks. Oh, me too, Josh calls out as he lunges for the open fridge door. Hey! Blake reaches for the pizza box at the same time, throwing an elbow out that last second to catch his little brother in the ribs. Oh, Mom! You can both have pizza. No need to bruise your brother. I didn't mean to, Blake mumbles. Of course you did, I say, before he has a chance to argue. Say you're sorry and let him pick the pieces he wants first. Sorry. Blake doesn't look or sound sorry, but I don't have the mental energy to make him say it again. Don't kill each other over pizza, boys. As soon as it comes out of my mouth, I regret it. I shouldn't be joking about death with my father's ashes only cooling from the incinerator. They both shoot me a weird look, kind of like pain mixed with regret, fear, and even humor. Sorry, I mumble, and stuff the granola bar in my mouth. We finish our respective breakfasts before I head back to their rooms to see the outfits they've laid out for the funeral. They both chosen black slacks and shoes, paired with different buttoned-up long-sleeve shirts. One is blue and the other is dark gray. Perfect. Much better than their current basketball shorts and t-shirts. Good job, guys. Please lay them carefully in the hang-up bag on my bed, and then you can goof off. I still need to pick out my dress. Back in my closet, I pick out the shoes first. Being that it's January, I don't want to wear anything open-toed. So I grab a pair of simple flats and decide on a black pantsuit instead of a dress. At the last minute, I choose a dark green blouse for a pop of color and lay my choices on top of my boys' clothes in the garment bag. My husband, Max, will meet us at the church after work. All packed for a depressing night. I sigh and then zip up the bag and take it to the Ford Explorer parked in the garage, adding it next to the craft supplies I packed last night. 10 minutes to go. Good timing. Come on, boys, let's head to Grandma's. I call into the house from the cold garage entry. I drive down Paseo del Norte is silent as they stare down at their phones. Maybe they're making future plans with friends or checking with latest game apps. Who knows? I usually prefer to see their faces in the rearview mirror instead of the tops of their sandy-colored heads, but this morning, I really don't mind. My thoughts are a raging river of random memories threatening to drown me from the inside. My father is gone. I'll never again see his face, hear his deep baritone, or hike the foothills with him again. And every time I see my mother, I'll be reminded of the missing piece in our lives. My chest is aching, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I remember riding the aerial tram to the top of the Sandias when the boys were little. All 6 of us stood on the south side of the nearly empty tram, looking in the long glass windows to the sandy desert ground rising to meet the rocky mountainside. Max was holding a 3-year-old thumb-sucking Joshua in his arms, while 5-year-old Blake clung to my leg. Blake wanted to act like a big boy and not show his fear. However, my dad could sense the tension too. As I stroked my eldest hair, my father sat cross-legged on the floor next to us. He didn't try to tell Blake that things were going to be all right, and that the cables were strong and the tram was safe. He just sat there, looking out, waiting for Blake to take the bait. It wasn't a full minute before my son was sitting inside my father's folded legs, perfect bucket seat for my little man. I watched them sit together. From their low perch, they were forced to look straight out and not down at the landscape fast dropping away from the rising tram. Blake was calm and content for the rest of the ride. My father knew what my son needed and how to give it to him without pointing it out to the rest of the passengers to scoff at. So many wonderful memories. What are we but the memories we leave behind? Well, that's good. I should use that tonight. My mental fog clears just in time to make the turn into my parents' neighborhood. I mean, my mother's neighborhood. Damn, this will take a long time, I fear. I ring the doorbell just in case she needs a moment to compose herself. I'm here to help her go pick up her husband's ashes from the funeral home, after all. What else would her mind be focused on today? She opens the door wide with a sad-sounding admonition. Oh, honey, you don't have to ring the bell. My mom steps out onto the porch to hug each of the boys silently, before turning to me. Her eyes are bloodshot. I should have insisted she stay the night with us after dinner yesterday. I know I wouldn't have wanted to be alone the night before a funeral. Still, she had insisted on being in her own bed for some reason. To each her own, I guess. Well, come on in, everybody. Someone brought me brownies, and I bet my grandboys would each love a piece of mid-morning snack. Blake and Josh whoop and make a beeline for the kitchen while I smile at my sweet mother. You're awesome, Mom. I know, she smiles wanly back, her eyes still sad. We join the boys in the kitchen just as they're taking their first brownie bites, and they smile at each other as they chew. I sit on a bar stool at the counter and decide to get to the point. We're here to help. What can we do? The boys nod as they shovel the last of their brownie squares in their mouths. Well, she starts slowly, the funeral home called first thing this morning and said the ashes are ready, so we don't have to wait until this afternoon to pick them up. I nod, hoping my silence will entice more information regarding how we can help. And I have those photos you asked for. I couldn't sleep last night. I just kept thinking. I know she doesn't want to break into sobs in front of the boys, so I stand up and ask, where are the pictures? I'll help you pick some out. We brought the poster board with us and some craft supplies. Kids can make the memorial board for Grandpa while we're gone. Thank you, honey. I don't know what I'd do. She can't finish the sentence. I follow her into Dad's office, where a few dozen photos of my father are scattered on the brown leather couch. Mom sniffs, and I turn just in time to open my arms for another hug. We stand there, both of us crying quietly now, arms wrapped tightly around each other. Time passes. Our tears subside. Who knows how long we stand in that tight embrace. She finally pulls back and sinks into the desk chair behind her, wiping at her face. Good thing I haven't put my makeup on yet. Yeah. We each grab a tissue. I turn back to the photos spread on the couch and reach out to touch the edge of an old, faded picture with all 3 of us in it. I'm a toddler in a swimsuit, held high on my father's bare chest so our eyes are level, my mom close beside him. We're in my Aunt Betty's backyard, a shimmering swimming pool full of kids behind us. It was one of the dozens of weekend get-togethers with the aunts, uncles, and cousins at Betty's when I was growing up. How my father adored those rowdy family Saturdays. I turned my attention to another image, one of my parents' wedding day. So much joy and love seems to seep from the photo. My mother's bridal bouquet is drooping from the crook of her elbow, forgotten, her sole attention focused on my dad's grinning face looking down at hers. I was a blessed child to have parents like these. Another photo catches my attention. It was taken after college graduation. Dad's standing tall in the middle of the photo with my black gown self on one side and my same-clad future husband on the other. Dad is gripping us so tightly to his sides we're bowing into him from the pressure. We're all smiling, open-mouthed, probably laughing, as Mom snapped the shutter. They knew before I did that Max and I would be married within 2 years of that very day. Once again, such joy. There are snapshots of me, Max, Blake, and Joshua, my father as a child, as a teen, and the most recent one of him playing basketball with my boys. Images of some of the happiest days in my father's life. These photos are perfect, Mom, I whisper. I turn back to her and sit on the floor, my back leaning against the couch scattered with memories. I sniffle before adding, they show his love of life and other people. Such a great man. My mother's face twists again and she swallows a sob. Her chest heaves silently twice before she takes a shaky breath, and then her face clears, showing a calm I know she doesn't feel. She is so strong. Let's go get him, hon. No need to make him wait for us any longer. So macabre sounding. I inhale deeply, hoping to capture some of her strength for myself and stand and offer my hand. We walk back to the kitchen, still clutching each other, and inform the boys we're leaving soon. Will you both please empty the car before we leave and then hang up your clothes for tonight? And then you can get started on the board for Grandpa. I hand my key to Blake. Grandma and I are going to freshen up before we go, and don't eat all the brownies, guys. They give me ornery grins before mumbling, okay, at the same time as they head to the car to unload. The drive to the funeral home is silent, the air thick with a strange dread. We're both thinking of what's about to happen. We're headed to retrieve a pewter urn filled with the ashes of a man we both loved desperately, but would never have the chance to see, touch, or hear again. We arrive and I hop out of the driver's seat quickly to walk around to the car, open my mother's door, and offer my arm. She accepts my support quickly. The cold breath of early morning is gone, though there's still a chill in the light breeze. We walk slowly into the funeral home together. After giving our names and purpose, we sit on a flowered couch to wait, clutching hands. This is so hard to believe. Even after months of watching my dad wither away in front of my eyes, he is really, truly gone. A dark-skinned man in a blue suit enters the lobby carrying a dull silver urn respectfully in his hands. Mrs. Moore? I'm frozen on the couch. My father's in there. What's left of him, anyway. I stare at the urn as it gets closer, not even seeing the man's face. There are 3 black lines recessed into the vessel with my father's full name, birthday, and death day engraved below them. Death day? Is that a word? My mind is suddenly fuzzy. This is it. This is final. This pretty little jar holds all the remains of my larger-than-life father. My mom stands to accept the remains, quietly saying, thank you, and I snap out of my mild horror to stand too. I look purposefully into the man's dark eyes, intentionally ignoring the silver container now. Yes, thank you, I add. My mother extends her arms for the offered urn, her hands steady. Mine? Not so much. I'm glad I'll be driving instead of holding him. Mom pulls the jar to her chest reverently and holds onto it as if it were a newborn babe. Silent tears pour down her cheeks as her emotions spill over again. She doesn't sob or scream. It's just tears. Thank you, I say to the man again and reach out to shake his hand. He takes my small hand in his 2 large paws and shakes them once. I'm sorry for your loss. Yes, he's sorry. Everyone's sorry. So am I. And I'll stop there. It's about halfway there.
Okay. Well, thank you, Christina. I mean, definitely theme appropriate, just very sad.
Right.
But okay, well, I will be talking to you in a little bit, so you have some time to kind of hang out and recover from, reading and everything.
Yes, thank you.
All right, and so next up we have Kendra. So, hello. Oh, are you muted? You are muted.
Yes, I was
Okay.
afraid to dare unmute until now. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for
What are
having me.
you- Oh, you're welcome.
Actually, my contribution to Fresh Starts was just 5 haikus. So I'll read those quickly since that's what I contributed. And then I'll read the first chapter of one of my novels about a post-plague world. I actually started writing it before COVID. So that's probably the topic I have most closely related to dead things. But
Okay.
So
sweet.
first I'll read 5 Blossoms for Meditation, which was in Fresh Starts. 5 Blossoms for Meditation. Robins gather sticks. Monks hold steaming mugs between open palms. Husks fall on master scrubbing pots. Monkey feasts on fruit. Moon skinny dips if pond asks nicely between raindrops. Green hands let stones skip across lilies and catch fire. Barefoot ants march across cold temple floorboards. Chants rise in the mist. I write YA, so this voice will be completely different. It's probably the least literary thing being read here tonight, but it's definitely about death. It's called From the Pox Ward, and it's called Chapter 1 Nabbed. As I walk the tree-lined streets toward Old Man Heltzer's pox bunker, I check my U bracelet constantly to make sure I'm staying green. The locals call this place Heltzer's Shelter. They swear the old man did creepy rituals down there using human blood and bones to ward off plague. Me, I think that cannibalism stuff is all crap. But my pulse keeps racing and my bracelet keeps flashing, threatening to turn yellow. I'm dreading the next hour. God, I wish I'd never promised my sister I'd go with her. I asked the universe for a favor. Please get me out of this. I'll settle for anything. A minor injury, a late afternoon lightning storm, a meteor, a rift in space and time. That last one is my favorite. All I want is to forget the pox ever happened. Ouch! This shoe is evil. When my sister suddenly rips off one of her new sandals, complaining of blisters, I experience a brief moment of hope. But no, Les is too much of a trooper to turn back. She begins half walking, half hopping on the scorching pavement. Soon she's patting one naked blistered foot along the edges of people's lawns. Optimistically, I look to the sky. Options 2 through 4 might still be in play. Ouch, so hot, so hot. With one last dramatic hop, Alessa scurries toward the nearest patch of grass and collapses, grabbing her toes. In between ouches, she peeks at my bracelet to check on my emotional status. Don't worry, I'm green. I'm fine, I say automatically. I'm not going to have a meltdown over visiting a pox shelter. She smiles. Okay, good to know. Look, I burned my foot. I glance down to humor her. It still looks like a foot. That's tragic. It is, believe me. Alessa blows on her toes. The 3 middle ones are ivory-colored. They lost their pigment during the pox. Now they clash with her soul, reddened by the cruel asphalt. I take pity on my sister and pull my gym bag off my shoulder. We both just came from back-to-back school tryouts, and I've been suffering from my own new cleats. Here, I find a rogue, rumpled Band-Aid under my writer's notebook. Will this help? Immensely. Alessa takes it gratefully. The real tragedy today, though, is still your soccer tryouts. What was Coach so furious about? We could hear him screaming that this year's team was doomed. What'd you all do wrong? Breathe out when you were supposed to breathe in? Pass when you were supposed to bunt? I grin. Something like that. All that bunting in soccer. You think you made the cut? Probably not. I didn't get much time on the ball. I push my sweaty bangs out of my face. It's okay. I don't need a year of being abused just to feel like part of a team. Seriously, Coach got so worked up yelling about team spirit that his bracelet went yellow twice. Alessa laughs. Wow, team spirit doesn't seem like a topic that should piss anyone off enough to mimic a flu. Exactly. The parental units will be disappointed, though. I'll try again next year. Coach prefers seniors. Alessa considers that, using her freshly resandaled foot to nudge a lump of leftover tar. The town has been filling in potholes for the first time in 12 years. It's the latest Northern Corridor reconstruction project, promising 1,000 new jobs and roads so flat and wide our entire futures will straighten out. In the boiling late August sun, the tar looks oily and oozy and ominous, like it's made of ground-up dinosaur souls. I tell Alessa this. She loves my writer's brain. My sister has seriously never met a metaphor she didn't like. Nice, she smiles, obviously relieved. I know she's thinking, if Pablo's narrating in his head, he's okay. You think the ghost of a velociraptor bit your toe? Possibly, Alessa allows, still eyeing my bracelet. But listen, I understand not wanting to get soaked by Coach spitting orders at you all season, but don't you ever want to make some friends now that we'd say evolved past the Jurassic period? Crap. I managed not to roll my eyes once during practice, at least not outwardly, but I do now. Come on, you know what it's like. If I'm even assigned a lab partner, they ask about living through the collapse in New York City, and if they don't, they stare at me just wanting to ask. Alessa sighs. Right, but after those first few admittedly awkward exchanges, you don't think maybe you'd find other things to talk about? I hear that's how friendship works. I don't need friends. I've got you to give me a hard time. Alessa stops at a lamp pole to adjust her sandal. I trace the pole upward with my eyes. Our curfew speaker has been bolted and then welded under the light that burned out years ago. The dead bulb looms, creepy and shadowy as a spider's egg sac. Once this pole was something that cheered people up when it got dark. Now it's a way for police to yell threats at them. I'll make friends once I'm out of high school, I add, since I know she's worried. Writer friends, interesting friends. Usually Alessa just gets me. Usually it's mom and dad I'm trying to convince. Alessa knows I had friends once. But every kid in that old neighborhood is gone now. Lost to the pox, lost to the foster system, or just lost. I don't need new friends. Once was enough. Okay, I get you, Pablo. I really do get you, she says, reading my mind. I'm sorry. We can skip the bunker if you want. We could just head back early for dinner. I already love that first edition you found me. I don't need another present. Now, the bunker's fine, I lie, relieved Alessa has accepted my decision to remain a hermit. So you think you made Cheer Squad? Yeah, they already told me. Of course they did. She flashes a lopsided smile. It wasn't a given. Alessa really does get me. She's even letting me change the subject, although we both know I'm totally stressed about Heltzers. But I promised her on her birthday, partly to prove to my parents that I'm okay. I've been having nightmares lately. Dad's been suggesting counseling again, like when I was first adopted. I don't get why it's so hard for everyone to believe I don't need to look backward. The pox is over. I survived. Barely. And life is good now. Good enough. The nightmares will go away. They always do. Wait up, someone calls behind us. I know it's Scotty Goodwin before I turn around. His throat's always buzzy and raspy, like he's swallowing down bees. The second wave left him with lesions and nodules on his vocal cords or something awful like that. Hey, Scotty, Alessa beams. Scotty turns red, then he coughs. This kid coughs a lot. I'm not weirded out by it, but everyone at school is always whispering that he's bound to come up terminal. They avoid him like the plague, to use a cliche. Even worse than they avoided me before mom and dad found a specialist to laser the worst pox marks off my face. Scotty and I are the only kids I know in this town who didn't get inoculated until after the third wave. How are tryouts? Alessa asks Scotty brightly. Did you have much time for the ball? I snort. Don't mind my sister, Scotty. She's only recently shed her alien body and is currently trying to assimilate here on Earth. Sometimes she gets our human expressions wrong. Scotty laughs in between coughs, and Alessa does too in between punches on my arm. Alessa could kick anyone's butt at Taekwondo, but she doesn't give a damn about sports. I happen to know the only reason she tried out for cheerleading is because she's got a crush on the cheer captain. We're checking out Heltzers. Want to come with us? Alessa offers. Scotty lights up. Every guy around is in love with my sister. Yeah, it's creepy and cool, and I heard he opened up a new room. A siren slices through the quiet of late afternoon, cutting Scotty off. We all check our bracelets instinctively, like my father checks his speed when he passes a cop car. Not a pox cop. Someone probably ran that sign by the school again, Alessa says. Yeah, Scotty replies, a little breathlessly as the siren fades. Probably. I cover my wrist with my other hand. My bracelet didn't like that siren much. At the end of the next quiet lane, we reach Heltzer's. He's got a card table set up like a lemonade stand. He puts his paper down, revealing a mask, then takes our cash with a gloved hand and sanitizer. I don't blame him. When he first came out, finally believing the pox had ended, he bought every inoculation for every strain that UWatch had developed. Then he promptly contracted Lyme disease from a tick. I don't care about the virus precautions, but I'm annoyed Heltzer demands to read back our bracelets. He doesn't have the authority. Still, I'll lose my nerve if we drag this out any longer. I enter my password and look away, trying to breathe steadily while he scrolls through my temps and pulse history for the last few weeks. I thought it would be more crowded, Alessa whispers as Heltzer lingers over Scotty's bracelet. It's just us? Maybe he ate the other visitors, I whisper back. Eventually, Heltzer waves us through the weather-beaten shed that hides the entrance. We pull open a giant tool cabinet door with a false back, then duck through to descend concrete steps leading to the bunker's main room. It's decorated with pre-pox movie posters and world maps dotted with pushpins. Video game consoles and cords cover the worn couch like vines. It doesn't look like the bunker of a serial killer/cultist, I say, more like the apartment of a loser who never left his parents' basement. Alessa smirks. Could be the same thing. Could be you, Pablo, if you don't get into college. I don't need college. I'll work industry while I write my bestseller. This time it's Alessa who snorts. I'm not exactly built for manual labor. We begin moving through the living quarters and storage areas. There's an entire closet filled with flattened cans and stacked empty emery packets, then another stuffed with hazmat suits still in plastic wrap. Alessa and Scotty tinker with the gadgets and supplies. Tacked up in various places are handwritten notes torn from Heltzer's journal, saying things like, sleeping down here most nights waiting for inoculation, World Health Organization says 12 months minimum, and second wave hits hard, back to police state, and going in for good, have enough rations for 10 years, and learned how to reclaim toilet water to grow vegetables, and other equally cheerful tidbits of information. Creepy, Scotty whispers, gaping at the air filter. The giant fan blades over our heads look like an airplane prop, and I shudder. You know, he modeled this water system after those Earth ships out west, Alessa says raptly. I've read about them on the dark web. I don't think she needed to drop that last bit, but Alessa likes thinking she's on the edge of mainstream society. She'd trade her titanium U bracelet for a hemp one in a heartbeat. Listen to this, Scotty reads. Third wave getting real bad in some places. Heard New York City last resort shelters worse than the cure. Shortwave says JFK airport abandoned by authorities and feral. Glad I'm down here. I gasped, then coughed to hide it. It's like getting punched in the gut to hear the words JFK airport. The air's too thin now. The shelter feels like the airport tunnels, full of hungry ghosts. Alessa puts the crank radio down. Pablo, wanna go? No, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. But my bracelet betrays me, turning yellow. I start narrating again to make everything seem okay. We're standing by a shelf jammed full of how-to books. Log cabin building, radio repair, knot tying, lock picking, wilderness survival, snare setting, even a pamphlet on giving yourself haircuts. Heltzer's bald, but I can't go for the obvious. This here manual on ice fishing sure came in handy for him, eh? I say. Alessa laughs. Maybe that's for the next pandemic. Scotty's still reading. Terminal strain reported in year 3 post-pox. We'll wait for vaccine. He pauses, but we're nowhere near curing the terminal strain. It's getting worse, right? I wonder why Heltzer came out then, if he still had so much food. I shrug. Maybe he ran out of toilet paper. Alessa glances at her bracelet, then mine. We should get back. It's almost curfew. I head quickly toward the stairs and grumble loudly to mask my relief. I thought curfew was over yesterday. Alessa follows me. Someone flashed an orange during that lightning storm the other night, so it reset through Friday. I went yellow once myself. It was so close. Up the steps, through the tool cabinet, out the shed. I'm practically bounding down the lane once we reach sunlight again. Now I can breathe, really breathe. Tryouts are over, Heltzer's shelter is over, and Dad's latkes and Mom's chef salad are calling my name. Remembering how I nearly starved to death for real in the airport has triggered my appetite. We begin walking home under the leafy maples. How come you two haven't been to Heltzer's before, Scotty asks, if you're so curious about those Earth ships? Scotty's a nice kid, and it's a relief that he's oblivious about how me and the Pox in the past are not a great combination. But Alessa answers, so I don't have to. The shelter's only open in August, right? Our parents take us to a lake house in the Adirondacks every August, she explains. We only came back early this year for tryouts. Yeah, tryouts. So Alessa could excel at one more social activity while I failed at one more, I announce. But I'm not upset. Life is good now. Alessa punches my arm again. Scotty laughs again. It's a good sound. Scotty doesn't laugh much. It's hearty, like when a little kid really revs up into a giggle fest, not caring what anyone thinks. We've got 14 minutes and only 5 blocks to cover, but we walk at a good clip. No one likes the thought of getting hassled for breaking curfew. I feel a little sorry for Scotty when he branches off, waving goodbye. He's still got his mom, but she works weekends at Industry, and they take in boarders to pay the rent. I'd hate sharing my space with strangers. If I know my life, and I do, right now Dad's got dinner in the oven, Mom's trying to resuscitate her hanging garden under the eaves, Digger's spread out in the cool cement snoozing, and my older brother Gavin's reading in his room, doing a deep quarantine before college. It's good. It's enough. Mom, Dad, Alessa, Gavin, Digger, and the occasional sleepover of Alessa's cute friends so they can discuss how cheerleading is a real sport. Scotty seemed jumpy. You think he's feeling okay? Alessa asks. He kept coughing, and he didn't want to let Heltzer read his bracelet. Why should he? I say indignantly. Heltzer had no right. I know. I just mean maybe he's been sicker than we realized. A siren howls in the distance. Mercifully, the sound stops quickly, stymied in mid-blip. Regular cops, Alessa interprets again. Right? I didn't hear the siren returns, louder, now doubled with the strains of the Pox siren. 2 tones weaving back and forth in ribbons like DNA. Definitely Pox cops, I whisper. Oh no, I hope that's not. You don't think Heltzer called in as citizens on Scotty, do you? She turns in the direction of Scotty's street. Maybe. God, I don't know. Scabs. We shouldn't have had to show Heltzer anyway. He doesn't get it. He was underground. He didn't have to deal with all the scabby Pox bullshit we did. He didn't. I stopped, surprised at how mad I just became in the space of 2 sentences. I don't usually swear around Alessa. The sirens keep coming nearer. My bracelet goes yellow again. I cover it and pick up my pace. I'm sorry for yelling. Let's just get home. Now the cops are somewhere in our neighborhood. We exchange worried glances as we walk. Who flashed an orange this time? And if I flash one out of sheer terror, will the cops take me in too? We hit the driveway and hightail it to the house. I was right. Mom's holding her trowel by the flower bed. Dad's holding out a ladle, probably interrupting her to taste something. But they're both on pause, watching us approach. My mom makes a frantic, come over here now, gesture at us, sweeping with her arm like she can protect us from Pox cops. Alessa and I hurry up the steps to gape down the street. Digger shoves his wet nose into the backs of our legs. Soon Gavin leans out the front door, wearing a mask. My heart keeps pounding. Is it someone we know? Maybe it's Mrs. Rivers, Alessa whispers, scanning the street. Neighbors are peering through windows, some opening doors, others probably huddle with the lights off. She needs that pacemaker replaced. Could have tripped her bracelet. The Pox lights are flashing at the end of the block. Red and white, the colors of the scars and blanches on our skin. I stop breathing as the cars come closer, closer. Now they're just outside our house. The cars stop. So do the sirens. Dad drops the ladle. Mom drops her trowel. Digger starts barking, hard. I hear my mom calling me, but I'm frozen. Don't move, Alessa whispers, grabbing my wrist. Pablo, don't move. I can't help it. I move. I look down at Alessa's hand on my arm. She's covering my bracelet. Her grip is tight. Her fingers are glowing red. It's my first chapter. Thank you for listening.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so just leaving us hanging there.
Yeah, that's YA for you. Thank you.
All right, cool. So I will just take it off here, and then we got Steve. So Steve, you just keep coming back.
Let's get unmuted here.
Oh.
Yeah, I keep doing. It's a good time.
Yeah, it seems pretty good. I mean, considering I don't know. I mean, my brain's kind of fried this week from all the heat, but I've got the AC blasting, so I'm doing the best I can.
You keep letting me come back, so it's all on you.
Yeah, true. I'm an enabler.
Yes.
All right. Well, what have you got for us tonight?
Okay. Tonight I have a story that's a follow-on to the one that I read last time around of If These Walls Could Talk. This episode is called I'll Quit Tomorrow. And it doesn't really require any setup. I think that you'll fall into it pretty quickly.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll let you take it.
I went a day without seeing Detective Emily Lindell, then another day, until the days became a week and the weeks a month. I stayed busy. Final grades were due at the end of July. I had them done early, a first for me. Late August was free time to review lesson plans and get organized, time to get out of the house. But there was nowhere to go, and no one to go there with. Emily didn't call. I had told her not to call, and she didn't. I checked my phone every day to make sure. I'm a tool that she uses to solve hard cases. If these walls could talk, walls do talk if you know how to hear them. They remember what happens and wait for the right person to listen to their tales. Emily's work with the St. Louis PD dwells deep inside the violent side of human interaction. Walls that hold those secrets aren't always willing to let go when the story's done. Others like me had lost their way and become trapped in a horror that never ends. I didn't want to join them. Emily didn't see it that way, so I told her not to call. In the end, I called Emily. I was almost over her, almost past craving the sound of her voice and the need to be with her. It was 2:38 in the morning when I thought my phone had buzzed. I picked it up, and the app was open to her name, because that's what I had been looking at when I had fallen asleep. I fumbled the phone in the dark, and my thumb hit the glowing letters. The screen showed calling. I tapped in quickly enough that her phone shouldn't have had time to respond. I held the phone against my chest afterward, and the screen went black. I closed my eyes and listened to my heart, and toward dawn, I slept again. I finished breakfast the next morning, but felt too dull to tackle any of the deferred maintenance I'd promised my house that I'd accomplish over break. Instead, I drank coffee and checked the news. 2 sharp knocks at the front door interrupted my scrolling. It was the sort of knock used by delivery drivers to signal that they're already running back to their truck, but they may have left something desirable on your front porch. I was expecting books, but it wasn't books. It was Emily. I opened the door for her and felt the stirrings of a serious relapse. She opened her mouth, closed it, gave me a sigh and a sad smile. Detective Lindell, it's been a while. Lame. I knew exactly how long it had been, how many days, how many hours. You look good. Did you call me last night, Johnny? My phone says you did, but you must have turned yours off because you didn't pick up when I called back. I didn't answer. I was relapsing hard. I wanted her to keep talking so I could go on hearing the sound of the low, warm voice I'd not heard for far too long. She tipped her head. Are you okay? I stepped aside, held the door open for her. Yeah, come in. It's already too hot out there. I was going to do some work on the... She brushed against me as she stepped past, and whatever it was that I was going to tell her about my plans for the day vanished from my brain. I touched Emily's shoulder. She stopped, her back to me. Her lips parted, but not to speak. I touched the bare skin next to the thin strap of her sundress. She waited, breathing hard through her mouth, waited for me to move the strap slowly off her shoulder and kiss the skin hidden beneath it. The resolve I'd been so proud of dropped away in a trail of crumpled clothes. I didn't care what case she wanted me to work. I didn't care if I died. This was no longer a relapse. I was past that. This was an embrace of addiction and a celebration of obsession. In the cool dark afterward, Emily stirred, not fully recovered. I did call you, I told her. It was an accident, but I'm not sorry. One eye looked at me from behind a tangle of brown hair, blinked, closed again. Tell me what case you're working. I'll help you no matter what it is. She snuggled closer, if that were possible. No case. On vacation. Vacation? I'd never known Emily to take vacation. Really? Do you think this dress? She raised her head, looked around the room. Wherever it is. Do you think it's department issue? 3 weeks off. My boss said my work had become sloppy and that I'm distracted and daydreaming half the time. He was right. I'm glad you called. Being off work has given me time to think. We need to get some things straight. Okay. First, I owe you an apology. You said no closets, and I made you do a closet. You said no basements, and I sent you into a horror movie of a basement. I'm sorry. I kissed her. It's all right. You were there to save me. Second, I know you're lying about how you read the walls, how the paint and plaster record what happens. The lies have to stop if this is going to work between us. I moved her hair away from her face. You're going to wish you would believe the lies. Not now. We'll have time to talk because third, you're going on vacation with me. Oh, where are we going? Camping, or don't you do tents? I like tents just fine. Have you seen the weather forecast? It's pushing triple digits all week. I hope you like being sweaty. She kissed my shoulder. Sweat has its place, but I have a better plan. Have you ever been to Colorado? Emily had already planned the whole trip, from an overnight stay in Dodge City to reservations at the Pinion Flats campground at the Great Sand Dunes. She made the reservations a week ago, but hadn't worked up the courage to tell me. Things like that put goosebumps on my arms. She picked me up 2 days later at 6 a.m. I tossed my backpack and duffel in the back of her Jeep. She yawned and handed me the keys. You drive first, Johnny. We can stop and pick up coffee if you're sleepy. She pulled a pillow out of the back, curled up on the passenger seat. You can do the interstate part, west on I-70. Wake me when we're close to KC. That's 200 miles. Emily closed her eyes. Yep. I stopped for gas in Blue Springs. Emily stomped around the car, waking herself up while I filled the tank. Feeling better? I asked. Much. Want me to drive? I'm good for another few hours. We'll do lunch in Emporia, and then I'll give you your keys back. The way this thing sucks fuel, we'll need gas again by then. She shrugged. It's a Jeep. You drive, but I get to pick the music. I don't know what that stuff was you were listening to, but it gave me nightmares. Big Mike Griffin gives you nightmares? I need to teach you about the blues. I can't listen to the blues in a car. Blues needs a dark room full of smoke and a glass full of good sipping whiskey. I accelerated back onto the highway. Maybe you need to teach me. It made the corners of her mouth turn up, and that made my chest hurt. I endured 2 hours of John Denver, Neil Diamond, and the Beach Boys. Emily sang along with every track, eyes closed, lost in it. I didn't mind so much. The miles passed quickly. We had a fast food lunch in Emporia, then westbound on US 50. I dozed the rest of the way to Dodge City to the hum of tires and Emily duetting with Willie Nelson. We entered the city late in the afternoon. Other small Kansas towns might wither away, but not Dodge. The reasons for its prosperity were obvious in the smell of stockyards and the lonely rumble of trains. Emily wrinkled her nose. Cowtown. The smell of money. Steak for dinner? I know a place. We have something to do first. Emily drove a few blocks north. We stopped in front of an old house shaded by maple and dogwood. She turned off the car, gave me a hard look. The Santa Fe house was built in 1905. Someone turned it into a B&B in the 70s, and it's where we're staying tonight. Is that a problem? Haunted? I asked. Probably. God knows what horrors have filled the walls with memories. I got out, opened the back door, grabbed our bags. That's not how it works. Then tell me. I'll do better than that. If you want it, you're going to get all of it. The defiant smile faded from her lips. The owner checked us in. She was late 20s, long hair braided down the back of her flowered boho hippie dress. Karen was a self-described refugee of the Bay Area who'd fallen in love with Dodge City's slower pace and tight, small-town feel. I'm like Dorothy, she told us. Over the rainbow and no place like home. Kansas is freaking awesome. We walked up the creaky wooden stairs to a quaint second-floor bedroom. I dumped our bags on the four-poster bed. Emily pulled the blinds closed. First, you tell me the truth. Then I'll let you take me to dinner. Last chance, I told her. Her eyes narrowed. Fine. The walls are alive, Emily. There aren't any memories stored in the swirl of paint and plaster. Something lives in them, and it remembers everything that happens, and I know how to talk to it. Bullshit. You asked for the truth. That's the truth. You lied before. This is just one more layer of obfuscation. I knew you'd be like this. I pulled the chair from the small desk and slid it into the corner. Up you go. Why? It happens first where the walls meet in the corner of the ceiling. It spreads from there, but that's where it's strongest. Emily didn't move. Trust me. She stepped up, one hand braced on the wall, one on my shoulder. I put my hands on her waist. I will not let you fall. I love you too much for that. She glanced down at me, unsure. This is nuts. Then step down. Believe what you want. I'll work the cases you bring me, and you don't need to know how I do it. She shook her head. I love you too much for that. What next? Focus on the corner. Look into the shadows. Okay. Put your hands into it, both of them. Touch where the three planes intersect. She leaned forward. I slid my fingers under her shirt to provide a skin-to-skin connection so I could guide her. There are spider webs up here, Johnny. That happens. The spiders are attracted to what lives in the walls, too. Great. I'm not hearing anything. Walls don't like to talk. When I was learning this, I tried to force it. Empty your thoughts. Go gentle and soft. It will come through your fingertips. Sometimes I use my tongue to hear the deep memories. She looked down at me. I'm not licking it. Focus, Em. Gentle, soft, welcoming. Amusement flowed through the walls. The room was a joyful place, a sanctuary, a dwelling for sunlight and peace, and it was ready to tell us a story. Hush, Emily. Listen. It came in a snap, as it often does. I was elsewhere. The door opened and Karen entered, looking just as she had when we had met her. The man with her wore a t-shirt and frayed jeans. And they both laughed when she pulled him down onto the bed and into her arms. The radio beside the bed played Otis Redding's Sitting on the Dock of the Bay as they started to make love. Emily swayed, and I caught her as she fell. What the hell? Shivers flowed through her, one after the other, leaving tears in her eyes. I laid her on the bed, placed a comforter over her. After a moment, she said, I never want to do that again. If these walls could talk, but they don't. They take you there instead, except not really. It was as if I no longer existed. There was just the wall and the thing happening in front of us. I wasn't sure I'd ever find myself again. I kissed her forehead. That was a quick, happy memory. And it wasn't from very long ago. Karen looked the same. Emily nodded. Happy memory. What if I put you through reading walls for me? We catch the bad guys. Holding on to who you are gets easier with practice and training. Emily shivered one last time, pushed the comforter away, and sat up. She stared at the ceiling and the walls as though she'd never trust them again, as if she expected them to reach out and tell her another memory and another. I knew that fear. Come on, Em, let's get out of here. A walk in the open air will do you good. There was an older woman at the front desk when we came down the stairs, gray hair wound neatly in a bun. She looked up from the book she was reading and asked, Can I help you? It's all right, I answered. Karen checked us in earlier. I held up my room key. Karen? Long hair, pretty blue dress, owns the place? Oh, you must mean Karen. Isn't she just a peach? She and that husband of hers have done wonders restoring the old place. I'm Kat. She smiled at Emily. And you must be Emily Lindell of St. Louis. I saw your name in the registry. That's me, Emily answered. Kat leaned forward, lowered her voice. Your reservation was for a single, but I won't tell. He seems a fine gentleman, and I'm not one to judge. Thanks, I appreciate that. Emily looped her arm through mine and tugged. Shall we go? I hesitated a moment longer. Kat, we're going for a walk and to find a place for dinner. Any recommendations? Pete's is the place you want. Walk straight on down the hill toward the depot. Can't miss it. You tell Pete I said hello. We'll do that. Thanks. I followed Emily out the door and down the steps off the broad front porch. She stopped when we reached the sidewalk and hugged me. You're going to be all right, I told her. Am I? I met a woman that looks like she escaped from Woodstock and thinks she's Dorothy Gale. Then I watched her going at it with some guy on our bed. Hallucination, except it wasn't. That makes it 1,000 times worse. Now Crazy Cat is at the front desk. $5 says she won't recognize us when we come back from dinner. She'll remember me. I'm a fine gentleman. She said so. Emily turned her head away. Go ahead and say it, Johnny. Say what? Say, I told you so. I deserve it. I kissed her, my hand on her cheek. You deserve a lot of things. That's not one of them. A bit of sparkle came back in her eyes. How about a steak? Is that on your list of things I deserve? Sure, and a glass of wine. Afterward, we'll hold hands and walk in the moonlight on a warm Kansas evening, knowing that there's a soft bed waiting for us. She gave me a confident grin. Will you help me give those walls a story worth telling? I'll give you exactly what you deserve. She took my hand. Over and over again, I hope. Pete's was an old wood frame building, teetering somewhere between needing an expensive renovation or a bulldozer. Pete himself was much the same. Dressed in jeans and a flannel shirt, he squinted at us from a face lined by an ungentle life. He asked us to hold tight while he got a table ready. We waited, and I told him, We're staying at the Santa Fe house. That's so. Cat says hello. Pete sucked in on his lips, nodded a couple times. You see her again, tell her I miss her. I'll do that. When we were done with our meals, Pete brought the check. I thanked him, and he pulled out a chair and sat with us. I was watching you. You don't seem like the sort of fellow that would make fun of an old man, so I suspect what you said is true. About Kat saying hello? Yeah, Kat. Met her in the summer when I was 21, working my way west without a plan and few prospects. Her parents ran the Santa Fe as a boarding house. I stayed with them there for a spell, and falling in love with Catherine McKittrick was the easiest thing I've ever done. There was nothing about her I didn't adore. It burned hot between us. Did you marry? Emily asked. It's kind of funny. We were so much a part of each other that the idea of saying I do never crossed our minds. We skipped on past I do straight to I did. That kind of passion lasts until time itself comes to an end. At least that's what we believed. But I was young then, by which I mean a fool. I got the idea that I needed to make something of myself. She was angry when I left, told me not to bother coming back or writing her any letters. I left anyway. I knew I'd made a mistake the next day, but had too much pride to turn tail. I made it back to Dodge 20 years ago, come next month. Not a day had passed that I didn't ache for her. A man can get over an addiction, quit cold turkey, and the desire will fade away. What I felt for Kat wasn't like that. Emily lowered her voice. Obsession. That's right. You never recover from obsession. There's no saying, I'll quit tomorrow. It's best just to let her burn. Well, I walked right up the steps of the Santa Fe to tell her that I loved her and that I was all done being a fool. Emily leaned forward, her chin on her fist. What did she say? The cancer had taken her at the end of August, gone 3 weeks before I knocked on her door. Emily leaned back. That's a great story, but Kat is as much alive as you are. Pete chuckled. Careful there. The barrier between this world and the next is stretched mighty thin at my age. She's waiting for you, isn't she? I asked. Even in death. Pete nodded. She sends folks here once in a while to let me know. Emily didn't speak until we were outside. She had her phone out. I'm not buying it. Talking walls are one thing. Ghosts? I don't think so. What are you looking at? Website for the Santa Fe. There are old pictures of them. She frowned, shoved her phone back into her pocket. Do you want to leave, Em? We can find somewhere else to stay, or drive all night if you want. She shook her head. Kat was sitting behind the front desk, chin on her chest as she slept. Emily was in full Detective Lindell mode. She stepped around the desk before I could stop her, knelt down, and poked Kat to see if she was real. Wake up. Pete says he misses you. Kat blinked at Emily. Oh, dear. I wasn't supposed to let you touch me. She patted Emily's hand. All for the best, I suppose. Nice game. Is peddling ghost stories good for business? Oh, no, that's not it at all. Kat stood. Let's go sit in the parlor. Karen brought in tea a bit ago, and it should still be warm. We sat together on an old-fashioned couch. Pete told you his story? He did, I answered. He said you're dead. Kat is dead. I pretend, out of kindness to Pete. How's your tea, dear? Tea's fine, Emily told her without tasting it. Fooling him doesn't seem like a kindness. But it is, the sweetest kind. Pete tried to kill himself the night he learned Kat was gone. I was with him when he woke up, but the pills still had a hold of his mind. He hadn't seen Kat for 30 years and thought I was her ghost. I told him how much I loved him and that I'd linger here at the Santa Fe until he could join me, but that he wasn't to rush our reunion. I send our guests to him a few times a year. It keeps his hopes up, and they get a nice ghost story to tell their friends. Sometimes I go to him in the night so he can see me and hold me. Is that so wrong? I suppose not. He seems a fine gentleman. Kat nodded. He is. She turned to me. More tea? I set my cup on the table. No, thank you. Then I suppose I should be going. Karen will be here if you need anything. We waited for the soft thud of the door. Emily leaned her head on my shoulder. Told you there wasn't a ghost. You were right. No ghosts here at all. It's still a good story. A sad story. Emily put her hand on my leg, drew patterns in the denim with her fingernail. Pete wasted all those years. Now he's missing out on... Oh, she didn't give us her real name. Anyway, they should be together tonight. Maybe they will be. Maybe. I hope she's on her way to him. No one should be alone. I kissed her gently. Em, we have a long drive ahead of us tomorrow. After everything that's happened, I think you deserve a few hours in a soft bed. The corners of her mouth came up in a crooked smile. You're right. That's exactly what I deserve. And that's the end.
All righty. So we have all kinds of, creepy things. All right. So let's see. I'm just going to bring everybody back up here. All right. So, oh, that's right, Karen. You got the headset there. I was like, do you have like sparkly tinsel or something in your hair? And I was like, oh no, it's just the white. All right. Well, so let's see. How is everybody doing with the lovely summer weather we have going on?
Too hot.
Hot.
Good riding weather.
Oh, I guess. Yeah. I mean, as long as you
In the air conditioning.
Yeah.
yes, putting in the air conditioning.
My laptop started overheating in the middle of this, so I panicked and put it on a package of frozen turkey bacon because it was the only thing flat in my freezer.
That's hilarious.
Awesome.
It's
Oh,
very
wow.
typical for my life. It's just glad I had something flat in there.
Oh my goodness.
So before you
Well,
overheat, I'm kind of curious. Had you started your pandemic thing before the pandemic?
Yes, I started that series about 7 or 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And I was working on something more contemporary because I thought it would be more sellable. And then in March, I just thought, you know what? It's now or never. And I learned how to put them on Amazon. I'm still writing other things that I'm trying to work on with agents, but I just decided to have some control over my life and not just keep waiting. And yeah, it was super fun to layer in some new ideas though, as I did the last edit.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I like the toilet paper.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Yes. Yeah, the TP, it's almost too real though, but I haven't run out of toilet paper once during the pandemic, so I'm excited.
Me neither.
Yeah, yay! It does make me think of that meme though, with the pandemic men displaying their plumage though, with the toilet paper rolls.
Right.
Pretty appealing.
That's funny.
So let's see. So Susan, you're working on a new manuscript. Is everybody here working on a novel right now, or 2 or 5?
Yeah. between the short stories.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. And Steve, you went to Colorado, was it Comic-Con?
Oh,
Or
Colorado Springs Comic and Toy Con, not to be confused with
Okay.
Colorado Springs Comic Con, which is at the end of August.
Okay.
This is a much smaller thing. It's a 1-day event, so probably it's like maybe a quarter the size of Comic Con, but still good. Sold enough books to make it worthwhile, and met some fun people.
That's cool.
That's a fun event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That was kind of amazing. The guy next to me just had like these long boxes full of comic books, all in nice slip sleeves, and he was busy there all day long. People buy in like stacks 3 and 4 inches thick of comic books.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
I was impressed.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Oh, well, let's see. Anybody going to any conferences or anything?
In September.
So,
October.
oh, okay.
Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers.
Yeah.
Okay, you're
Colorado
going
Gold.
to RMFW?
Yeah.
Me too.
Yep.
Is that back in person this year?
Awesome.
Yes.
Yes.
It's hybrid.
Hybrid? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
Amy,
so
I see that last I looked, we were up until like 98 subscribers.
Oh, wow. So we're almost there. So we
You just need like, what is it, two more?
Yes. Yeah. So we're finally getting subscribers. So yay. Well, I mean, we were getting subscribers all along, but
Yeah.
almost at 100. So
Yeah. To tell them to ring the bell and subscribe.
yes. Done. Everybody, needs to ring the bell and subscribe. And, that way I can feel like I'm making progress. Oh, Roberta now says 99. So, woohoo!
Woo! Added one today.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Amy, how's your eye?
Oh, it's fine. I didn't actually get any, eyelash curler in my eye. So it was just, just freaked me out. Nothing, coming at my eyeball was ever a good feeling, It's just,
Why I don't wear contacts.
So, but yeah, I don't know. There's always got to be that, little surprise before showtime. Well, let's see. Does anybody have any big or little news to share before we wrap up and all go our separate ways?
No, I don't know if you noticed in my story that we didn't quite make it to the Great Sand Dunes. So if you sometime a few months from now, if you invite me back, I'll get them to the dunes.
Is that
Okay.
part of a larger collection, Steve?
I'm thinking so. This was the third one of the series. I think if I can think of enough to do to get them up to about 10 or so, then I'll release them as an anthology. Once I hit probably another couple, I would think about putting them on the Amazon Vela thing that they have.
Nice.
So we'll see. But it's not my usual genre, so we'll see how long these characters keep me going.
Wow, that's awesome. And Roberta, it was 101 today in Albuquerque.
Wow.
No, thank you.
That's toasty.
Yeah, that's a little too hot.
Yeah, my son is in Las Cruces, New Mexico,
Oh, nice.
and it was 108 there today.
Oof.
Oh my God.
Right.
It's like, no, thank you.
Oh.
It's like the asphalt in the parking lot starts to go soft. It's
Yeah.
No, so it was 103 in Grand Junction. So yeah, pretty toasty. I'm seriously thinking about moving to Alaska at this point. I'm just like, oh my God.
I feel you.
Forget
Yeah,
snowbirds.
I mean,
Go north for the summer.
Right. All right. Well, yeah, I'm sitting here with my melting brain, so I think I'm going to find a nice place to hang out downstairs with a puppy because my most recent we adopted this older dog from my boyfriend's brother, and she doesn't really do the stairs. So, you know, in the evening, she's like, oh, no one's down here with me.
Aw.
So
Oh.
probably should go hang with her. But it's been good to see everybody, and, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving us the venue.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We were all in good company. I loved everybody's stuff. Steve, haunting and creepy. Kendra, I like the poetry and plague combination, two of my favorite things. And
Good combo.
yes,
Susan?
I loved all your desert stuff. And Karen, I liked hearing the origin of Mushu mac and cheese. Steve, I missed what you just said.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say I almost get the feeling from hearing your story that they kind of exist in the same universe.
They do. I think there's some crossover potential there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we talked about Jeeps and the Blues too. So
yeah, very much so.
okay.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so
Bye,
much
Amy.
for making
Bye,
us a
guys.
Bye,
great night.
everybody.
Okay.
We have a good
Bye.
night.
It's
Thanks.
so nice to meet you
Good night.
all. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay. So, all right. Okay. Good night, everybody. And yeah, Steve had a good reminder. If you have not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. We also have a newsletter, which I will add to the description of the channel if it's not already up there. I know I always have big plans to add all these links and stuff and often forget to do them, but I'm going to try to remember to do it this time. So, and there's also a group on Facebook called Stories Live. So if you want to join our group, feel free. And I hope you have a good night. All right. And oh, and of course, I'll see you next month. The theme is I Know What You're Thinking. And that is going to be on Wednesday, July 21st at 7 p.m. And there's more information about who's reading on our group. And I can also go ahead and I'll post it in the comments for this episode as well so that you can have a look at that. So anyway, have a great night and I'll see you soon. All right, bye-bye.